Here we have a beautiful example of a Santa Cruz black salamander. What a spectacular animal. Isn't that stunning? Just pretty much a completely jet black salamander. They're so cool. And this is the only place that this species lives. There's other species of black salamanders, but as the name implies, the Santa Cruz black salamander only lives in a small area in the Santa Cruz Mountains. They used to be grouped into one species with the other black salamanders, but they've been split into, I think, like 4 species. So these guys have full species status. It's been a little while since we've seen one of these. This is, of course, the yellow-eyed encetina. It's one of the plethodonid salamanders, just like the Santa Cruz black we just saw. And these guys are known for being mimics of the California and rough-skinned newts, which are highly toxic. These guys are a little bit toxic, but they're not deadly. They're more noxious, if anything. Always fun to see them, though. Here's something we haven't seen in a little while. This is a little ringneck snake, and I do mean little. This is a juvenile. Really tiny. So, I mean, these are small snakes in general, but this is definitely a young one. And we are in November now. It's kind of cooler than it's been through much of the fall, and it's been raining recently, and the moisture has brought out some of these little fossorial snakes, which is great. And these guys are so beautiful. I've shown you the dorsal coloration before, but I don't think it ever gets old. Isn't that something? It's really nice to get snakes late in the season like this. Last fall was so dry, so it was quite a bit more difficult. But we're off to a better start this year, so let's hope that doesn't change. And we can continue seeing wonderful little snakes like this. You can see why they're called a ringneck snake. These guys are mostly eating invertebrates and small salamanders and things like that. Back under the rock. Seeing these patternless alligator lizards is getting less and less unusual. The more time I spend here. Still very cool, though. This is a northern alligator lizard, by the way. Here's a southern alligator lizard, and this one has a tail that's never been broken. So it really illustrates just how long these guys' tails can get. It's like over twice the length of the body. Very cool. It's always nice to see them like this. Boys, we're gonna let this guy go on his way. Alright, just flipped this really gorgeous California newt. These guys are super toxic, as I've stated before. But they're not dangerous to touch unless you have open cuts and you really harass them. Look at that. So, of course, the way to tell the California newt from the rough-skinned newt, which also shares the same habitat in a lot of places, is that the orange comes up to the eye in the California newt, whereas in the rough-skinned newt, the dark brown coloration extends below the eye. And this one is a particularly good example because you can see the orange even goes over the eye, which is not always the case. I'm gonna have to move this guy to put the piece of wood back without smushing him. Alright, here we are. The next day with a nice little western yellow-bellied racer. Santa Cruz County, yet again. You can see he's kind of musking on me. But yeah, you can tell how they get that name. What a beautiful snake. noticing the ones in this area have a lot of green coloration, which is really nice. And I mean, you can see that across much of their range, but it seems to be more prevalent here for whatever reason. It's a fairly cool morning, and this guy was under a small board. Normally these guys can move around a lot quicker, but he's a little cold still and feeling pretty sluggish. But gorgeous little snake. Just photographing him on this rock a little bit. Isn't that a gorgeous snake? Look at that tongue flicking. So probably in a couple hours as it warms up, this guy will be lightning fast and wouldn't be so easy to handle as he is right now. Look how much difference in the landscape there is since it rained. Lots of beautiful green grass coming in. Mostly introduced grass, unfortunately, but it's still nice to have some moisture around. The snakes definitely seem to like it. Here's a juvenile western fence lizard. You can see it's pretty dark, and that's partly because it's cold outside right now. And these guys have what are called iridophores in their skin, which basically hold different pigments. And when it's cool like this, they can actually shift their coloration to be darker, which helps them soak up heat more efficiently. So it's a fun little fact. He was hanging out right here. And here's a nice opportunity to show you what the same species we just saw looks like as a juvenile. This is a juvenile western yellow-bellied racer. And as you can see, they have a lot of patterning, whereas the adults do not. Isn't that gorgeous, though? I love that kind of red coloration. And they might have more patterning as a juvenile because they are just more vulnerable, less experienced, and they tend to do better producing all this extra pigment that they maybe don't benefit from quite as much as an adult. But that's a beautiful little snake. Didn't let this guy go right where I found him. Here's a lovely juvenile gopher snake. Another cool morning flip. So yeah, actually morning when it's kind of cool like this tends to be a good time to flip boards because they use them for thermal regulation for the most part. And the board will heat up in the sun fairly quickly, and it's a nice place for the snake to warm up in safety. They usually won't be under boards when it's very hot out. Okay, so here we had a mother rattlesnake that was kind of basking at the edge of this rock. If you look right there, there's a little neonate. So it's kind of interesting that this guy hasn't left its rookery yet, because we're in November now, and they usually disperse within a couple weeks of being born. So this one must have come a bit late, which is pretty cool. Or they have returned to an overwintering site, and this crevice goes down much further than it looks. Here's a second-year larvae of the California giant salamander. This guy's pretty close to metamorphosing. The gills are very small, as they usually are in this species, but this one is getting pretty able to walk across land. Here's a yellow-eyed ensatina. He's doing this high stance, which kind of shows off the bright orange colors, which are warning coloration. Cool to see. There's a juvenile Santa Cruz black salamander. Second individual today. Here's a really large arboreal salamander. You can tell this is a male. It's got huge jaw muscles. Could give you a pretty good bite.